Good afternoon and welcome to Demolition Daily live stream, number 4. Can't believe we've been doing this for 4 days now. I've got a lot to say today, not all of it good, not all of it positive, and as a result of that I've had to make quite a few notes, so if I'm not looking in the eye I do apologise because I've got some notes on the screen here. On the positive side, I just wanted to say a massive thanks to all those that have taken part, the guests first and foremost, but also all of those of you that have commented over the past few days, that have shared the resulting video on social media. I took a very quick look at the stats this morning, and it appears that we're currently doubling our global audience every other day, which is unheard of. It's just an incredible thing. So thanks to everyone that's been involved. Now, just to be clear, we're doing this basically as a public service. So the size of the audience, to my mind, doesn't really matter because I'm not trying to make any money out of it. That being said, if there are any companies out there that would like to sponsor the show, we'd be more than happy to have you on board. But we are sharing vital information and advice literally every day, so the more people that get to see it the better, so please keep sharing and keep contributing. Now, I've mentioned the dread word sponsorship. I've had a couple of questions about the hats that I'm wearing. There is a couple of reasons for this. I've just come back from Las Vegas, the ConExpo show, where I collected, I think at last count, about 15 hats. So if this coronavirus goes on for 3 weeks, I've got a hat per day, so I can keep that going. There is a more practical reason than that as well. There is a light in this room that's directly above my head. And if I don't have a hat on, it shows up the fact that I'm going bald very, very rapidly, and I end up with this halo around my head, which isn't particularly attractive. So that's the reason for the hat. Also, the beard is starting to get unruly. I normally go and get my beard trimmed about once a fortnight. Very nice Turkish guy up the road who makes me look spick and span. Obviously, that isn't happening at the moment. So, yeah, by the end of this, I'll probably end up looking like Robinson Crusoe, and for that, I apologise. Before we get into the real crux of things, we've got a couple of guests lined up for today's show. We've got Mike Kehoe from Demolition Consultants, C&D Consultancy. Mike was one of the first that actually triggered, in my mind, the sheer scale of the likely coronavirus outbreak while I was in the States. He sent me a photograph of a very deserted Euston Station in London, which Euston Station isn't empty when there are no trains, and yet there it was. Also joining us a bit later on is, technology allowing, is David Cant of Veritas Consulting. David's a health and safety expert. It's also his birthday today, so I will thank him. I hope I remember to thank him for coming on his birthday. But before I get to that, I think it's time for a bit of a rant about effectively the industry's response, or in some cases lack thereof, to the COVID outbreak. I've said the word industry, and I guess I mean moreover than that is the self-appointed trade associations that supposedly represent the industry and its workers. I don't know how any trade body that claims to speak for industry can continue to fudge rather than calling for all sites to be closed. If you think about the situation that we're in at the moment, if there's a remote chance that someone could be hit on the head with a falling object, the industry quickly mandates that everyone should wear hard hats. Simple. If there's a remote chance that somebody could be hit by a vehicle or a piece of equipment, the industry insists that we wear high-vis clothing. Absolutely justifiable and perfectly right. As we stand today, there's a very real possibility that demolition and construction workers could be infected with a deadly virus. And it's killing more people each day than construction kills in a year. And then the industry responds by basically sitting on the fence and issuing guidance, while there's thousands and possibly tens of thousands of workers potentially exposed. I don't want to labour the point, but all of this was kind of, this live stream was born out of a message I had from Italy about the situation they have there. They are further down this curve that everyone keeps referring to than we are, and I just thought I captured this on Twitter earlier. I am paraphrasing, but this is the reality of life in Italy. This is from I can't remember the guy's name, but this is an unnamed Twitter guy, and this is what he has to say. And this is aimed at us, effectively, us here in the UK. You don't even have a clue what awaits you in a few weeks. 2 weeks ago, we were hanging out, going to work, taking our children to school. Now we leave the house once a week for groceries, masks, and gloves. We can travel less than 1 kilometre from our homes, and our movements are tracked. There is a €206 fine if we break the rules. Everything that can be rebuilt as a hospital is being repurposed. A cruise ship that's docked at Genoa is currently being converted. Patients that are hopeless are being allowed to die by hospitals. If they bring in two patients, a 30-year-old and a 50-year-old, they will save the 30-year-old because there's not enough respirators to go around. Now, that is the stark reality of what's happening and what is potentially facing us here in the UK if we continue to send our men and our women to work. It really is as simple as that. Now, I do realise, this is an unprecedented situation. I'll gladly admit that I've been kind of impressed by the way that the British politicians have rolled with the punches and have got their act together, and they've responded in the right way. Perhaps a little slowly at the start, but I think they've responded in the right way. I also realise that there are some sites that absolutely must remain open. There will be vital jobs that are going on that could potentially impinge on the health efforts for the NHS. You can't just walk away from a demolition site if there's potentially debris hanging over a footpath or something like that. So I understand that, and I also realise there really isn't just a binary solution. Somebody can wave a magic wand and all of this will be better. But the news today shows or suggests that there are tier one contractors out there that are effectively bullying subcontractors to remain at work, despite the undeniable and proven risks that they're putting people at. Now, this is a situation that calls for leadership. We've looked at that with our politicians, and although as I've stated before, I am certainly no member of the Boris Johnson fan club, but the guy stepped up to the plate. What we need is for our trade associations to do the same, to show some backbone, to show some leadership. And if organisations like Build UK really cared about their members and their members' employees, surely they would have issued an edict days ago to say, that's it, close the sites. If they're not essential, close them. Instead of which, we've still got a situation where we have workers travelling to and from site day in, day out, exposing themselves and potentially others to a deadly threat. Let's not forget, this is also an organisation that demands we all carry a little bit of plastic to prove that we're competent in our job and that we understand the concept of health and safety. Their failure to respond quickly and decisively on this, frankly, to my mind, and it is just to my mind, that is to their eternal shame. And they and many of the contractors they represent are treating demolition and construction workers like cannon fodder. I sincerely hope that when all this is eventually over, everyone will remember this. Now, sadly, Build UK and their ilk are not the only people on my shit list today. I've spoken before about my dismay at the Construction Industry Training Board's refusal to freeze its levy. But they've been trumped. They've absolutely been trumped. NOCN, or Nocken as they're known, which recently acquired the CPCS scheme from the CITB, has responded to the issue of cards expiring during the COVID-19 crisis. Now, I guess first of all, what kind of a bottom-feeding reptile is checking and quibbling over the validity of a CPCS card at a time when the UK is converting an exhibition centre into a 4,000-bed hospital cum morgue to deal with the tsunami of COVID cases? It takes a special breed of Jobsworth to be doing that kind of thing. But that's an aside. The good folks at Nocken have decided that to ensure that operators have a valid card, that they will issue an emergency cover card at a cost of 15 quid a pop. Now, they could extend all of the cards universally to the end of the year or beyond. They can make the rules up as they go along. But there's no money in that, is there? Instead, an operator that's potentially risking his own life and that of his family to go to work has now got to stump up 15 quid for the privilege. It just, with all that's going on, with all the various demolition companies and individuals within the demolition business are doing to help the NHS, to help their workers, to just generally for the greater good, and then you've got that. Now, aside from anything else, what does that say about the value of that CPCS card? Now, under normal circumstances, operators are expected to attend a course to prove their competence to secure this coveted card that they need. They then have to renew it every so often to prove that everything they've learned hasn't suddenly fallen out of their head. Then, when the chips are down, Knockan have decided they can just grant an additional 12 months, so long as you're willing to pay over 15 quid. At a time when many of those operators may be struggling to put food on the table for themselves and their family. If somebody can explain that to me, I just can't believe how crass and heartless and greedy you'd need to be to do that. It also suggests to me that they're just lacking in compassion, and they're just out of touch with the industry that they're serving and the people they're there to protect. Hopefully my guests who are lining up as we speak will be able to disagree or tell me the error of my ways on that. So that's my rant over. I said earlier we've got a couple of guests on board. I can see that Mike Kehoe of C&D Consultancy is waiting in the wings. So let me bring Mike in. Good afternoon, Mike. Good to see you.
Hi, Mark. You okay?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Sorry you had to sit through the rant, but that's kind of what they pay me to do. I mentioned earlier when I was introducing you, you were actually the person that really brought into sharp focus for me the severity or the potential severity of the COVID crisis. When I was in Las Vegas, you kindly sent me a photograph of London Euston Station, or a deserted London Euston Station, which was, I don't know, 5 o'clock at night when it should have been packed with literally tens of thousands of people. And I think that was really the first indication that I'd seen of just how serious this issue was likely to be and has become since. You're spending a lot of your time in London, or you traditionally spend a lot of your time in London. What are you doing at the moment?
Well, firstly, that particular night, I was shocked when I got back into Euston Station. I'd looked to see a couple of sites, I'd done a visit, and then I got back into the station. It was 5 o'clock on a Thursday night, which traditionally is a really, really busy time for Euston Station. And it was sparse. I mean, I sat next to somebody and I counted the number of people, and there was 30 people, maybe 30, 35 people in the station. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was surreal. So that sort of come home to me, really, that the fact that this was a serious, and the epidemic and the pandemic is really, really starting to hit London at that point really hard.
And as I mentioned there, you spend a lot of your time going in and out of London. I mean, your accent clearly proves that you're not from London, but no. you do a lot of your work in London. Are you still doing that?
Well, not at the minute. We've suspended all our work into London. We haven't been to London now for a couple of weeks. We're working from home. We've done one visit out of the office, and that was only on a Section 78 emergency procedure where a chimney stack was started to fail and was collapsing onto a residential property. So we went out to look at that for the council, and we stayed in the car. We didn't get out. We've done some method statements, but what we've been doing since this is kicked off has really just been doing everything from the office planning wise. But I've took the view that to stay off the site and to stay away until this comes on, because as you said before, this is, well, it's unprecedented, uncharted waters, and it's a war that we're in against an enemy that we can't see, touch, feel, or smell. And it's a real bad situation we're in at the minute.
Now, just on that subject, I mean, without trying to butter you up too much, I mean, C&D Consultancy is a consultant to some of the biggest demolition companies out there. That I think I know they value your input and your expertise very, very highly. What is your advice at the moment on things like keeping sites open, or do you not get involved in that?
My own personal opinion, and I can only say this is my own personal opinion, is that having seen some of the images from Italy and seeing what's happening is for me is to keep the sites closed. If we can prevent anything from today, one death of a family. I mean, I went Mother's Day the weekend, and I dropped the presents off and food at my mum's and sat at the doorstep and didn't go in. You know, this is unprecedented times that we're in, and some of the sites and some of the pictures I've seen this week of, you know, 30, 40, 50, even 100 men sitting there in the canteen, you know, sitting next to each other. It can't continue. You know, it's got to stop. And thankfully today, looking at the news, is a lot of sites have now took, you know, grasped that nettle and have stopped the sites, because this is spreading. It's spreading so quick, exponentially. It's going through the roof. I mean, we're 2 weeks behind Italy, and we've seen how bad Italy is. And you know, John Woodward has, you know, spoke to Despe this week, and you know, look how bad it is in Italy. We can't allow it to continue here in this site, and you know, unless it's construction sites for hospitals or, you know, pure infrastructure that's got to keep going, and they must keep going. You know, luxury flats, you know, and other ones and other programs, you know, I think we should stop. I think we should take a step back, and we should certainly stop at this point.
Now, obviously, you're coming at this from a demolition consultant's point of view. I've just seen that David Cant, our health and safety expert, has just joined us. Good afternoon, David, and very happy birthday to you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. The powers of social media, you see, that I know when your birthday is. I mentioned earlier that the fact that, you know, we've got sites that are remaining open, and you know, the potential risks, and as Mike was just saying, you know, there are people sitting side by side and, you know, rubbing shoulders with each other. But the situation, I think, with construction and with demolition is the fact that it's not just that. You know, you've got to get there. So, you know, you're potentially traveling in a car with somebody, or worse still, you're traveling on a train or a bus or whatever it might be, and you're potentially infecting more people than just those that you work with. As a health and safety expert, what do you say? Should we have just said enough's enough, shut everything, and let this all blow over?
In a nutshell, I think they should be shut, because you're right into how people are travelling to sites, van sharing, car sharing, trains, whatever it's going to be. They're always going to come in contact with people. I think sometimes it's a bigger thing. We've got some clients with some sites, and some of the funders are saying, "No, we want you to stop open." They're saying, if you close without the government's advice, we'll have a bun fight with the for delays and things like that after the sites. And I think they're being threatened in that side of things as well. So they're a bit of a chicken egg, because some of our clients say, unless the government says they're going to close, they'll just keep working. A couple of our client sites, we've put things into place with the said to their subcontractors. Only one guy in the van must travel to the site. It's a lovely sunny day. Benches are all outside for the canteen side of the things. They're all separated out. It's not ideal, but it's helping the situation on site. Keeping the guys separate, but I've advised them, you know, they should close sites if they can't do the separation side of things and the social distancing. It's very difficult when they're on site working away. I mean, some of these guys are working in harnesses and things like that, and I said, well, if one of these guys fell in the harness, people are going to you know, collect them if they fall and things like that, and then you're going to be in the right problems. So there's all sorts of things, and that a lot of clients are going to be in trouble with. Hello? Anybody there?
Hello?
Hello?
So the demolition consultant, you still got you?
You got me? You still got me? Good. Hello?
Still there, Mark?
You still there?
Absolutely. Yeah. You still got me?
Yeah, I've still got you. It's
fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets a bit sketchy from time to time.
That's right.
I guess a wider question is, you know, we do live in a very sort of litigious society these days. Yes. And you'd have to think there's probably a few solicitors at the moment sat in the back office rubbing their hands together right now, thinking, you know, all it takes is for somebody to be forced to go to work, or, you know, well, forced, yeah. Let's say it as it is. You know, you've got a tier one contractor who's forcing a demolition contractor to go to work against their better judgment, and somebody then picks up the virus and somebody dies. You'd have to think there must be a solicitor out there somewhere thinking, yeah, I'll have a piece of that.
Yeah, in 12 months' time, you'll probably there might be a few cases of that, and some clever solicitor and lawyer may be able to do something, shall we say, in that situation. I think it'd be hard to trace it back to the actual workplace and whether that's where they originally contacted the disease. That'd be the challenge. But I think something might come of it if the sites don't close and people are just doing what they want to do and be scared or think it's just a piece of common flu and ignore it. That might be different.
Yeah, although I think you're right about the traceability, but then when you look at the Italian experience, it's possible to trace it back to a sort of central location. So if Mike mentioned earlier, a site with 100 guys on it, if you suddenly have a spike in and around, that site or the relatives of the people working on that site, there's your smoking gun right there, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, like I said, the traceability side of things will be, like I say, if sites are ignoring the guidance. And there's a large spell on that particular site with people being, from getting the symptoms, and it's all recorded. Yes, something will come of it because that'll be the traceability side of things, and a clever lawyer will put that forward because who knows what could happen.
No, absolutely.
I think it's sad today that we're talking about, potential legal cases in 12 months where, at the minute we've got the situation where, my passion is demolition. My only focus is to make sure the demolition industry is safe. And the lads who I've grown up with, working for me in the case of the last 35 years, my only concern is their safety. We shouldn't be putting these guys at risk at the minute.
No.
You said before, I had a conversation with Kev Williams, and people know Kev Williams. He said before, if the hard hat wasn't on there, or they scraped the finger, or they didn't have the safety procedures, we'd stop the work, we'd be off the site.
Yeah.
We've got a situation today where we've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of demolition workers being forced to go to work, in terrible conditions where they potentially can pick this, this virus up, and within 2 to 3 weeks can be, in a serious state, or potentially, they could lose their lives. And I'm all well and good because I deal with legal side of it day in day out. We've got to look after the safety of these guys. These are our bread and butter. In 4 weeks' time, if we close it down for 4 weeks' time, we can restart this industry. It's a great industry. We've got resilient people that will start the work again. We've got fantastic demolition contractors with unbelievably talented men. We can start again in 4 weeks' time. What we can't do is carry on going and carrying infecting these guys all the way through for the next so many weeks, to the point where we've got a spike in our own industry. And I think we just need to sort of say, look, enough's enough. Let's stop. And from the feedback I'm getting today, Mark, and David, is a lot of my contractors who I act for are stopping work. They're self-stopping. Safe them this morning. We put one out this morning, said that they've completely stopped work. They pulled all the work back in. I know there's a lot of contractors in London have stopped work. No, I think they've stopped work, and it's a terrible thing to say. I mean, I don't know anything about the tier 1 contractors bullying anyone. I've not spoken to any of my clients yet about. But if that's a situation, that can't continue. These guys should not be forced to go to work if there's a danger for this virus can get hold of them.
Absolutely.
We must. This has got to stop now. I think we as an industry have got to say, enough's enough. Let's have 4 weeks off. Look at government advice in 4 weeks' time. Let's see where we go from there, and let's start again, because this industry will come back stronger again. But we need the people there to be there in 4 weeks' time, and the loss of one person in the industry's life, but it might not be that one person. It might be the mother. It might be the daughter. It might pass on to elderly parents. We surely can't do that in today's society. We just can't allow that to go on.
Yeah, trying to draw some positives from all that, Mike. You mentioned the working conditions. You're on an offsite even more than I am, and there is a real mixed bag out there when you're referring to conditions on site. I mean, I was on a site recently with I will name names, with one of the Robert Collard sites, and the welfare facilities there were cleaner than my house. Thankfully, my wife can't actually hear me saying that, but that was absolutely. I mean, these were absolutely pristine. absolutely pristine.
Mm.
But even today, that is not the rule. That's the exception. You know, I mean, there are times when I've quite happily crossed my legs rather than go in the facilities. You know, if we can take any positives out of the situation that we're in, surely one of those should be to improve the conditions on site. You know, to give the guys more space so they're not, you know, eating lunch on each other's laps and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point, Mark. And you know, Collards is one of our clients, so you know, we work with Collards, but it makes no difference whether it's the most pristine site or it's the dirtiest site. If someone sits next to somebody who's got the virus and coughs, it makes it, you know, if you know, we're talking about some of the cleanest facilities in the world on our construction sites and demolition sites now, especially going to London, some of the welfare facilities are unbelievably, you know, really, really good. But if you sit next to somebody on a tube, or you sit next to somebody in a van, or you're in a situation where you're going to get into the machine to give someone an instruction, or you're going to pick something up, it doesn't matter how clean you are, that site will potentially pass on the virus, and that's where we're not, you know, we're not sort of picking this up. Yes, you know, the welfare facilities following for CDM in 2015 fantastically improved, and sites are massive, and David will tell you that better than me. But at the same time, if this virus or someone coughs, splutters, goes on top of you, it doesn't matter where you are in the country, someone can pick it up. And this is the bit what we're trying to save. And just quickly on the numbers, you know, if someone doesn't infect somebody, those numbers are not halving, they're going from an infection of 450 people, one person infected, down to 14. So we've got to really, really change those figures. They're the ones we've got to change. And for me, a 4-week cessation of the works, you know, that's all we're asking for. 4 weeks is now. On the flip side, sorry, David.
That's right. The thing is, as well, in our particular industry, the definition of a cough, you know, there's a lot of dust floating around. There's a lot of tradespeople. They cough every single day, and they probably don't think they've actually got any symptoms of the coronavirus, and that's why sometimes they might be just going to work. And the perception of a clean site, they might think, oh, it's okay here, they're doing all the cleaning, I'm fine. I've had this cough for a long, long time, and they might not get the real symptoms for it, but they probably don't realise they're actually passing it on to people. And it becomes a perception of that, you know, that they're safe, but the longer they're on site, it increases the risk that everybody else is going to get it. And you know, I'm with you guys. I think, you know, they should stop and for 4 weeks, and let things settle and see how things go. But I think, you know, there will be, after all this, there will be a massive change in behaviour. I think on sites, how people will work, welfare facilities, even in social life. I think everyone will behave completely differently. I mean, you know, we walked us around the corner from a field, and we've got lots of people with dogs and stuff, and everybody's just keeping the distance, and it's strange how people switch behaviours so quickly.
You know, I really saw that up close and personal when I was over in the States. Obviously, the Conexpo show, there was about 140,000 people expected over 4 or 5 days, and the first day I went to shake somebody's hand because that's what you do, and they gave me the elbow bump, and from that point on it was, you know, that became the way to do things. But where it really struck me, I was traveling on a monorail into the show one morning, and I was sat beside a guy who had a baseball cap on, not dissimilar to this one, but it had Vietnam vet written on it, and the guy was clearly old enough to have been there, so, you know, he saw me looking at the hat and nodded, and I said, you know, I'm a Brit, I've never met a Vietnam vet before. And he said, oh, you know, I'm US Marine and all that, you know, and we had a 5-minute chat, and at the end of it, being English, you know, I stood up and I said, I'd just like to shake you by the hand, and he looked at me like I'd offered to take him into a nice warm shower. You know, absolutely not, you know. But that's where we are. That's the kind of thing we've got to get used to, you know.
And I think from my point of view is, you know, I started off the demolition as a labourer, you know, and then went on to work as a burner, and then top man burner, machine driver. You know, went through the whole gamut of it. I understand how these lads are feeling on site, and these, you know, demolition companies. You know, they want to work. You know, we've just gone through Brexit, and we're having a really tough time. So I've got nothing but sympathy for these guys who want to go to work. You know, I feel for them. I understand where they're coming from in terms of financial and the financial hardships they've got. It's just that, you know, my dad always says to me, "There's no pockets in shrouds." So, you know, we've got to be careful that, you know, we don't get what we wish for, going to work and something really badly happens to one person. And I think that's the message that I can say is, I love the demolition industry. I think it's the best industry in the world. Sorry, David, it's my passion. And I think
carry on. No,
I think the people I work with are fantastic, and I've got made some fantastic friends. But my gamut now is just to protect the demolition industry, protect the people that's in there, protect the sites, and we will come back strong. And we will come back. All the things that's happened to the demolition industry, all the years that I've been involved in it, my father, and then before my father, my grandfather, everything that's come from, we will come back stronger. And we will innovate, and we will take the industry back. But what I'd hate to do is we find in 4 weeks' time that a site in, A, B, and C is picked up, and the 4 people have got the virus, 2 can't survive. And David makes a great point before about the coughs. I mean, we're traditionally not the most healthiest of bunch sometimes.
Exactly.
In the consultancy, where we have had silica dust or dust on our lungs, and John Woodward would tell you, people get a cough. My dad has a sometimes a permanent cough, but he's had that for years from working on the industry with dust. So we could be masking some of these potential symptoms that we see. And David makes a great point on that, and I think that should be expanded to say to these guys, look, we have got problems on site. Let's be safe. Let's call it time from it. See where we are, where the government comes back, and hopefully in that time we'll have some testing and different types, so we will be better armed in 4 weeks' time. But let's get this curve out the way first before us.
One thing I think will happen, until people realise it's a personal risk to them, they won't really take any action. Unless if one of their friends or one of their pals has got it, or has got to think, hold on a minute, that when it's close to home to a personal risk, that's when they might stand back and realise, I don't think I should go to work today because I know somebody who's close, who's suffering, and until they realise that, I don't think it's they will do anything.
Just a point, and this sort of checks back to our show yesterday. One of the things that I think this virus and the outfall from it has revealed is the way that we've kind of modified our workforce. We've got a multi-tiered industry anyway, so you've got main contractors and specialist contractors and subcontractors and so on down the line, and a lot of the guys that are at the very bottom of that ladder have one way or another been pushed into self-employment and self-funding. So they're funding their own tickets. They get no health benefits or anything like that. Those guys are going to be the hardest hit financially, at least in the fallout from that. Are we at a point where we need to look again at the way that we've structured our workforce?
Yes.
That
was a horrifying silence for a second there.
Traditionally, in the demolition industry, when I grew up in the industry, it was a lot of companies with family, especially from Liverpool, where I grew up, were family type organisations where you'd have 30, 40 guys who generally either knew each other, was in there, and was all generally employed. Whereas we've moved slightly away from that to sort of individual self-employed guys paying for their own ticket, and a lot of the companies are sort of taking advantage of the fact that these guys are transient, will come and work for them from in there. But I think moving forward, I think this may be a game changer where we'll go back to sort of not saying a family type business, but a business where they'll be employed by the company, they'll stay with them, they'll train for them, they'll stay with them. I'm sure that the sort of labour side of it can be brought in, but I think it might be a bit of a game changer once this is over.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, people's behaviour will change, their habits will change, and as time goes by, those habits will just take over, and that's just, the way they live their lives will just change as well. So the longer they're off site, they're at home, cleaning their hands, washing properly, social distancing, their behaviour will change. And when they come to site, it'll be a whole different environment for people to be working in. I think it will, it will improve safety, it will improve the health of people as well, and how they behave, looking after other people, not just themselves. I think there'll be a massive shift change in attitudes. Fingers crossed, hopefully.
Going back to Mike's point there about going back to Mike's point there about changing the way that we all work and possibly going back to a more directly employed workforce.
Yeah.
Surely that is an easier thing to control from a health and safety point of view. If you're working with the same 10, 20, 50 guys day in, day out, you can instill in them a certain work ethos. And whereas if you're an agency worker one day and a different agency worker the next, surely that's very, very difficult, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've got direct employed staff, hopefully they're going to be loyal to you. You'll be able to look after them better, and hopefully you'll be able to get them all involved in working safely. The gig economy and things like that's doing the industry no favours at all. Anything like that, job security for them guys and their families. That's another issue. What they might be going to work because they need funding, and finance to feed their family and things like that. But direct employees, you have better control. I say better control. You make them feel involved more. You can get them involved in how the companies run. If you're a subcontractor, they might feel a little bit disconnected to the company. I think it will change the employment side of things. If that will happen, I don't know. Employment contracts, employment law, and things like that. I'm not sure it will. My wife owns a recruitment company, and it's things that she has to deal with, employing people on a zero contract, which she doesn't agree with. But the employer wants to pick people up and put them down, and she's having a hard time at the moment telling people that, sorry, your employer doesn't want you to be working today, and it's a tough one. And it's the same with construction. People can come and go all the time, and it's unless you're direct employed, I think it's going to be tough for people.
I think
it is tough for people.
It's tough for people, yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that this came out of yesterday's show as well. One of the concerns that I have, the industry I think has made some fairly big strides in the field of mental health awareness. This is really going to focus that. I think as I say, we've got a layer of our workforce who, one way or another, I spoke to a guy yesterday who has basically been laid off. He has no idea when he's going back to work. He has no guaranteed income. He has no safety net whatsoever. Those guys, we have to take care of their mental health, and that's not being done at the moment, is it?
Well, I think we have moved. You still there, David? Sorry.
Hello.
I can hear you, David. Hear you loud and clear.
I think we have moved massive strides in the industry in terms of mental health. I think we've moved. If we would have said years ago that we'd been in a situation where mental health training is the norm across the industry, it would have been a difficult one to say a few years. But now I think it is, and I think we will learn the lessons of the mental health and certainly this virus moving forward for our operatives, personal health and safety, as well as their mental well-being, because no doubt about it, we're hearing some horror stories about people's mental well-being in the virus now being, overtaking them and being very, very scared. So I think we will start to look after everybody, and I think some of the positives that will come out of this will, as I think that we will as an industry, we can certainly look after our workforce a lot better.
We can hear you loud and clear, David. I think you're back on screen now. Can you hear us okay? No, not sure what's happened there. Let's take him out and bring him back again, see if that will help.
Hello.
Can you hear us, David?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello. Hello.
I think we may have been defeated by technology there. Mike, one of the things that you and I have discussed, in the aftermath of accidents and that kind of thing is the possible need. I don't think it's even possible anymore. I think it's a need for maybe a benevolent fund dedicated to the demolition industry. We've touched on this in the aftermath of a couple of deaths in the past. I'm not entirely sure how big that pot would need to be to make sure that these guys that we're talking about being laid off at the moment, to keep them on the straight and narrow. But surely the time has come, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to a couple of people in the industry a while ago about setting up a scheme where it was purely a voluntary arrangement where people could pay into the scheme. A fund would be set up, and if anyone did lose their life, there'd be a pot of money for the wife and the family. What a problem happens in the past, and I've done quite a lot of accidents investigations, and the aftermath of a tragedy is that sometimes the wife or the girlfriend or partner of the person who's been killed simply doesn't have access to a bank account or to funds, and simply short term cannot pay for a funeral, cannot pay for food, cannot pay for the kids, cannot pay for anything, because the money then goes into probate and the guy's bank account is frozen. And, it's months and months and months. And we're not talking about, huge fat cats in the city for these guys. We're talking about hard working demolition guys who really, really, put the graft in each week, don't earn a huge amount of money, but what they do earn, is there. And with the cost of living, will probably spend what they earn during the course of a week or the month. So it's a really difficult one for them. So my thought is that we would enter a benevolent fund. We would get us on charity status, and we put a situation where the industry, individual people in the industry would put money in as a voluntary one, and if somebody did have a terrible accident or a fatality, there'd be a pot of money to go in there. I remember in Liverpool in the years gone by, when there was an accident or someone had a fatality, the groups of the companies in Liverpool would have a whip round. They would collect money and they'd give it to the family. It's just something like that, but on a more controlled, charitable status for these guys, just purely from one demolition guy to another, as a giving way moving forward there.
Yeah, I think we've got a few technical difficulties with David. I can see him, and I can hear him, but he can't hear us, I don't think. Are you there, David? No, it looks like we may have lost him.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess the final question, Mike, because I know you've got much more important things to be doing than talking to me all afternoon. Mm-hmm. Where do we go from here? Is it a case of just waiting for the government to pull their finger out? Is it a matter of Build UK and the rest of the associations to pull their finger out, or do we just basically tell everyone here and now, go home?
Well, I mean, again, it's a really difficult one, because people have got to put food and table, food and bring money in. So it's a really difficult one. But I think that the positive today is the government is helping self-employed. They're certainly helping employed, and they're certainly putting money into the economy to help people. So short term, I think you have to stand up and say, yeah, well done. It's a great one. In terms of what my own personal opinion is, and I'm not going to get into a spat with any organisation or trade, I just think from the really, really decent guys I've spoke to in the demolition industry, that they've closed the sites. That they've said, look, enough's enough. Our guys are the most important thing there. The safety, nothing to do with any legal responsibilities. They're just good demolition industry. They've said, look, let's close the site. Let's go home. And let's wait and see what comes up in a few weeks, few months from government one. Hopefully, and we all pray that this curve will be flattened down and we'll get through this pandemic. But I think from my point of view, and the advice I'm giving to people is to close sites, and a lot of demolition sites are following through. And today, as I said before, a lot of the building contractors are closing their sites as well.
Glad to hear it, Mike. Look, I think we've lost David altogether, but thanks ever so much for your time today. I really appreciate your input. I know David probably can't hear me, but I'm going to say thank you to him anyway. I'm going to sign you both out now. Let you get on with the day job. Keep up the good work, Mike. Good luck to Everton when the football season starts again. Not too much good luck, because we need all the points we can get.
Yeah, so the more important thing is to keep the lads safe. That's the most
absolutely. That was going to be my sign off. You may have beaten me to it.
Sorry. I'll leave that one to you.
Many thanks indeed, Mike. Thanks for your participation today. So we had a few technical difficulties. I guess that's part and parcel of this business in live streaming. It's not the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. I'd really just like to echo what Mike has said at the end there. Hopefully he is absolutely right. Hopefully we are in a situation where sites are closing. I think it's a shame that the government responded a little too slowly. I think it's an even bigger shame that the trade association serving the industry responded even more slowly. But I'm pleased to hear that a lot of the demolition contractors and those that they're working for are making the decision themselves to close the sites and keep their men and women safe. Nothing more to say really. We'll be back here again at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Thanks to Mike for taking part. Thanks also to David, and happy birthday once again, David. Hope you have a great birthday. And you can find something more interesting to do than talking to me on your birthday. We'll be back here again at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Thanks ever so much for watching. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your participation. Stay safe and look after yourselves and each other. Thanks a lot.